Good afternoon. We are back in sunny Johannesburg at the Birchwood Hotel Conference Center, where we are here with the Department of Higher Education and Training, as well as the SATVET Students Association and other valuable stakeholders within the higher education sector. And speaking about those valuable stakeholders, I am sitting here today with the president of COSAXA, Mr. Aubrey Mbosula. Welcome.
Thank you,
Shall we
Sister.
sit down? We are so happy to have
Thank you for having me.
Sure thing. How
It's
are you
an-
doing?
Look, it's very interesting developments that are happening in the sector. So I must say that we're having a good time.
Sure.
Despite the heat we've been complaining about, but we're fairly doing well.
Let's delve into it. Let's delve into COSAX's involvement within this particular multidisciplinary conference, if I can call it that.
Okay. Maybe what will assist is when if I can give a background of what COSAXA does.
Absolutely.
COSAXA is an acronym for College, Sports, Arts and Culture South Africa. We've been mandated by the Department of Higher Education to organize and coordinate all programs that have to do with co-curricular activities, mainly sports, arts and culture, and lately we've added another dimension called Language Festival, where students compete with languages. But why here? Students mainly need to be, in higher education, there's a division we call student support services. And central to that, it's a student-centered model where we are saying we need to look into the holistic development of students during their time in the formal education. And I think that's where COSAXA features in. Whereby we are then ensuring that over and above them competing and tackling challenges of their academic process, we are also creating enabling environment for them to also tap into their God-given talent, but also space for them to debrief against the challenges of they might be facing in a formal classroom. Lately, we are dealing with a lot of issues, your mental health and that. So the arts and the creativity, I think, also plays a critical part in addressing such challenges.
I'm so glad that you touched on the holistic, outlook of a student, and let's maybe then delve into the support that COSAXA then offers within the TVET space.
Yes. No, thank you. I'm glad that you asked that question. As the support that we offer, like I would say, I'd always go back to our core. What we do is we have realized that students need to be developed. Like I've said, they need to be developed holistically. Now, what we do, we bring an intervention in between the formal education and also the arts and the tapping into student talents. But there are meaningful programs that we have introduced. I had said earlier we introduced a program called Language Festival. In the Language Festival, we have introduced book reading, book review. Why am I highlighting this? We have realized that people get into formal education, they get qualifications, but if you were to take them into a formal interview in a job market, they are unable to sell themselves. Now we are creating platforms to say people must start to be involved in initiatives that will assist them to be better positioned to sell themselves and also earn a living in an event whereby they are talentedly been given. But over and above that, there's something we call Maths Olympiad. In TVET sectors, our core business is to develop artisans, but for you to have good artisans that they will construct buildings that will not fall in future, they need to somehow have a certain know-how in mathematics. Now we're trying to say with the Maths Olympiad, because the country has been proven through research that we are struggling with mathematics and science, through the Maths Olympiad, we are able to encourage our students to fall in love with the subject matter, which is maths, and also be able to achieve their academic objectives in that stream of education. In terms of the sports, your soccer, your athletics, we've learned that through sports, arts, and culture, you have students who would be well balanced. Over and above them being well balanced, you are enhancing and developing soft skills that people will be able to do problem solving and all those things. So it's more of an inter-infusion of social elements that students need in the sector, and also the formal part, which is the curricular articulation.
100%, I hear you. You know, this conference, we started off by saying how important it was, to not only establish some form of transformative nature within the curriculum, but I also think that what you're talking about within the students' mental health and sports and arts and culture is also quite important. But from you, maybe from a professional level, what do you hope to see? You know, what are the outcomes? We can all sit here and get but after we sit here, we have to take practical steps, in achieving this transformation that we're hoping to achieve. So, what do you hope will be the outcomes of this conference?
My hope and goal and wish is that we should be multidimensional in our approach. You see, the theme is says TVETs must transform. But my hope is that through programs of COSAXA, people will start to make a living and earn a living through their God-given talent. In an event whereby a formal job environment is unable to capture them. I was saying earlier in my message of support remarks to say, if we were to check in a formal employment, the people who are highly paid in the world are mostly from the creative side. You know, either they are your artists or they are your Ronaldos, Messis of this world. But because they're employed, they get to earn high. It means there's a serious market that we also need to be saying, how do we then tap into it? Because when we say TVETs must transform, and many speakers have been saying, let's have meaningful partnerships with industry, businesses, how do people start their businesses? But I think why we are here is to echo and say the creative industry must also be tapped in, and how best can we assist, and not only by those who would be in behind the camera, maybe playing or singing or running, but also the TV student who would be doing the work behind the cameras, rigging your cameras, setting up the stage. To say it's also an industry that maybe traditionally we have not recognized it as formal, but then it is a formal and very lucrative industry that can create another pathway in terms of a vocational a pathway for career for our students. So that's where we are. But also we are intending in the 2025 academic year to take our sports division into what we call high performance sport, where students will not just be playing for the sake of playing in the sector, but they will be playing in professional leagues that will be a direct feeder into your PSL teams, your Pro Tier teams, and your South African athletics developmental teams. Hopefully, we'll get to see students from the TVET sector competing in your SASCOC Olympic teams, your Bafana, your Pro Tier netball teams, and many other sporting codes. But also, the benefit would be such students would have a background of a formal education that they can still fall back on. Yes.
All right, then. Well, as an arts and culture girly, I am for what everything that you had just said. It really is exciting to hear. And thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Mrs. Cooks.
All righty then. We'll wrap this one up. Stay tuned for the next conversation. chat is none other than the president of the South African TVET Student Association, Ms. Gaugelo Chokwe. Gaugelo, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Gugu.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thanks you, under the circumstances. But I'm good. Yes.
I understand it's been a very busy week for
It has
you.
been a very busy week, but however, you can just see that the turnover is amazing, and it means that we are having a very successful conference.
Absolutely.
So I'm happy about that.
Lovely stuff. Let's get right into it. I mean, you and your organization and the students that are backing you within this are ultimately why we are here today. And I think what resonates with me is that you had the knowledge or the sort of niena vagalelo to be like, there's something that needs to change within the TVET sector. Let's speak about this change. What is it that needs to transform?
I think that you have noticed that the courses that are offered in the TVET sector are not aligning with the industry or the job market.
Sure.
So we thought, let's come up with a conference that is going to tackle the issues that are faced by our students on a daily basis and after they graduate. Where are the students going to get placed? Is entrepreneurship being prioritized in the TVET sector? How do we make sure that the courses that are offered currently are aligning with the demands of the industry and the economy of South Africa?
Yeah, which is a very fair thing to say, because I think I may sound like a broken record today, but I've been saying that with TVET institutions and colleges, it really is the hub of, gaining those practical skills.
It is.
And when we look at it from a South African context, we always say, hearing that, we have a shortage of skills, yet we have a plethora of TVET colleges within the country. So let's maybe speak about, how it is that from a practical point of view, what are these changes that need to happen? What are these things that need to be introduced?
I think, first of all, we need to start from the programs that are offered, firstly. Secondly, we need to make sure that we establish partnership with industry to ensure that our students get absorbed. We ensure that they get funding when they need to start a business, because we can't expect them to say that you are going to become entrepreneurs, but we don't fund them. We don't place them in a position that they will get funding to start these businesses.
Sure.
So that's where I think we can start.
Sure. Let's talk about making TVET colleges or institutions the first choice. We've been hearing this afternoon about how TVET colleges sometimes tend to be the last resort for some students who may not do well within the schooling sector. How is it that you think we can shift that mindset among South Africans in particular?
I think currently we are in the process of shifting that mentality, especially when it comes to society, because in the previous years, you would hear people saying that they would prefer to go to university rather than the TVET colleges. But right now, because when you look at the demand of the society and the industry, it demands that you have practical skills and technical skills more than your soft skills and stuff like that. So I think that the programs that are currently being offered, or the programs that are transforming into the sector, are the ones that are on high demand when it comes to the industry and the economy. And somebody once said that an economy that is focused on the TVET sector, it's one that is very much progressive, because because the universities don't offer practical side of things the way that TVET offers.
Yeah, 100%. And, we've gathered here for a 3-day conference ultimately to iron these things out, to flesh these things out. It really is a collaborative process. But, when everything is said and done, what do you hope to see at the end of it all?
We hope to see a concept document that is going to be implemented, and the department coming up with programs that are going to align with the demand of the industry, from the conversation that we've been having from this morning until Sunday.
Sure. With that said, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That was the president of the South African TVET Student Association, Ms. Gaugelo Chokwe, joining us today. We are still at the Birchwood Hotel Conference Center as well. I am your host, Gugu Pandle. Stay tuned. Still at the South African TVET Student Association's conference, along with the Department of Higher Education and many other valuable stakeholders within the higher education sector. Sitting next to me right now is Ms. Vuyokazi Mafilika, who is from NSFAS. Hi, Sissy.
Hi, sis.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good, good. So far, so good with conference day?
Yes, it's looking very good. And I am enjoying actually the discussions, especially coming from the students. You know, oftentimes it comes to these discussions thinking they want to know about funding and all of those things. But now the topical issue is around the relevance of the curriculum and their employability.
Sure. You know, this afternoon we have heard of, students with around the country, potential students rather, making TVET colleges their first choice. You spoke about a very important thing on, people who are currently in TVET institutions being ambassadors.
Yes.
Speaking about, how these institutions have maybe changed their lives or the opportunities that are there. Let's expand more on that and the importance of that.
Yeah. I feel generally that we're not hearing a lot of stories or good stories of successful people that are coming from the TVET sector.
Sure.
And I think people are probably waiting for someone out there to talk on their behalf. One of the things that I think is that, well, it starts from a young age, because when you are young, our parents were conditioned that, as a young child, you want to become a doctor, and all we've ever known is the university system.
Yeah.
And I would understand why it's entrenched, because it's been there for over 100 years, so it has cemented itself.
Sure.
And the TVET sector has actually had to go through numerous changes such that people don't understand its offering. Now we have a chance in terms of those who have had an orientation in terms of vocational education to actually talk about it and what it is about. And I think we should not be waiting for other people to talk about what is happening in the TVET, because the people who know are the people who have gone through the system. So I think if each person, on an average every year, there's about over 300,000 students in the TVETs. If all of those students every year were talking to their families, multiplied by 5, we would have an escalation or a snowball around what it is that TVET colleges have to offer. So I think being ambassadors for me is actually that first point of saying, how do I speak within my space? How do I correct, by the way? Because TVETs are not a second choice, but they're an alternative in terms of practical knowledge and technical knowledge. Not everybody wants to go the academic route, and therefore we should actually, because I feel that most students actually only know once they've finished matric that there's this opportunity when it comes to vocational education. So I think there's a lot that they can play, but also with the partnership with DBE in terms of the curriculum space, your life orientation programs, we could start talking about it there, the importance of vocational, so that we demystify the perception that is out there around TVET colleges.
Sure, 100% agree with you on that one. And, just for maybe, let's say, with your involvement now with NSFAS and how, as a stakeholder, you're playing your part within the TVET sector.
Sure. As NSFAS, we fund over 250,000 TVET students who are doing your ministerially approved programs. What we are particularly doing now is to advocate through other means, because we don't only deal with the DHET funding where there's dedicated funding for TVET students, but we're also going to other funders out there to say, you know what, there's this TVET college space, you could actually fund more students that are coming from the TVET space. So we are also taking a concerted effort to be an advocacy partner to say there are more students that are required. And also if you're looking at where the country is going, because most of our skills as a country are going to come from the TVET system. 100%. And therefore it's important that we all mobilize and we put our resources and efforts to boost this TVET system that's going to help us in terms of skills development.
Wow. Well, with that said, thank you so much.
All right.
I could listen to you speak all day. But thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.
That was Ms. Vuyokazi Mafilika from NSFAS joining us on the couch. Stay tuned.
Thanks.
I'm now joined by Mr. Sabelo Buthelezi, who is the Chief Director of Special Projects at the Department of Higher Education and Training. Mhlekazi, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Kuku.
I just wanted to touch base with you, especially with the department's support within the TVET sector. The students are calling for a transformation within the curriculum. We've expanded this afternoon on what that transformation could look like. But maybe just reel me in on how it is that you are supporting this sector.
Thank you very much. Let me start on the importance of this gathering.
Sure.
It's very important that we are part to this gathering of students, where students are saying to us, or student leadership are saying to us, nothing about us without us. From the department perspective, we are driving this initiative of making TVET colleges the institutions of first choice for students. Part of that is ensuring that we have suitable infrastructure for trades and occupations that are in high demand, so that colleges are able to respond to the fourth industrial revolution and what the industry needs, so that we close the gap between the skills demand from the industry and the supply from the college, so that we prepare colleges not just to train for the sake of training, because we end up training for unemployment, but to train for the skills that the industry needs. We can only do that if we bring the industry to the college. And industry can come to the college if there is infrastructure that talks to their operations. Also, lecturers and facilitators that are having skills and capabilities to use that infrastructure and equipment to the benefit of the industry, so that the industry don't say we need to retrain people that we are getting from TVET colleges, as if the 3 years at colleges was a wasted opportunity.
Sure. So with this 3-day sort of multidisciplinary conference that is happening, we're joined by students, like you said, it's a student-led sort of gathering, if I can put it that way. We've also got some lecturers, we've got, stakeholders within who play their different roles. And you've spoken about the importance of why it is that we've gathered here. But maybe you can tell me what it is that you hope to gain from this particular gathering.
Firstly, having students' leadership, we hope that when this conference ends on the third day, we'll be having a common understanding. It's important to have a common understanding and a direction with the students in terms of what are the hope and aspiration of the department, but also from us hearing from them directly on what are they anticipating to achieve. What is it that we can make their life better at TVET colleges, so that while they are still leaders at colleges, they also become ambassadors of colleges at high schools and in communities that will assist in changing perceptions that communities have about TVET colleges.
Sure. Well, with that said, Legazi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And so we're here again. I'm sitting with Mr. Vere from the Department of Higher Education and Training. Legazi, thank you so much for joining us for this moment.
Thank you very much.
Within your panel discussions, a lot was spoken about occupational qualifications. Please, can you just expand for our viewers at home on what that is and, the importance of why that was brought up within this conference today?
Okay, thank you for the question. Occupational qualifications are these modernly designed qualifications that integrates, the knowledge, which is theory, the practicals, and the workplace learning in one delivery model. So you don't have a situation wherein students have to first do one component of theory somewhere in the institution and then wait for placement maybe after a year or so because they can't find placement. So with occupational qualifications, when a student enrolls on the first day, the three partners, which is the institution, the funder, who's probably the sitter, and also the industry partner would have been in place so that this student, within the normal duration of completing the three components, then they complete that qualification, and then most of them will then get placed, because also many of these qualifications are developed with the involvement of industry. So occupational qualifications are developed through the processes that involve the sector education and training authorities, which are SETAs, and that's where industry role players sit, because each of these SETAs has a sector in which they operate. And the industry role players and companies and enterprises that play in that sector would have links there. And they will then contribute to the development of curriculum of these occupational qualifications, so that when we then take them and deliver them in institution, then we are guaranteed that these qualifications have been developed by industry, and which means they will not have students who complete these qualifications will not have an issue with mismatch of skills, because the qualifications are developed by industry.
Sure. I think that also ensures that students get a very strong start from the beginning.
Yes.
I really appreciate
So
that.
there are no gaps in terms of
Yes.
first completing the theoretical component. What we have had as a big problem with what we call the N courses or the NATED Report 19 programs was that the theoretical component was then completed as a separate sort of qualification. And then students, when they finish that theoretical component, then they then start looking for placement only after that. So sometime you find that they take years and years without getting placement, so that they can then get experiential learning and finish the qualification.
Sure.
So that goes out of the window with occupational qualifications.
Understood. And we have spoken within the conference rather about success stories within placement.
Yes.
But there's also been an encouragement of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
In the conversation. How can then we link the occupational qualifications within entrepreneurship? What does that look like, and what ultimately are we encouraging with this big word entrepreneurship? Within the TVET sector.
One of the things that society should understand about the TVET qualifications is that they are designed and developed for two purposes.
Sure.
You can complete this qualification and go and be employed by an employer,
Got you.
or you would have gained a skill that can enable you to start your own thing.
Sure.
So in delivering these occupational qualifications, we also engage with partners. Some of them are real partners who plays a huge role in developing entrepreneurs. And the flexibility of the occupational qualifications allows for additional modules, whether they are part of the formal qualification or not. But because of their flexibility, you can start plugging in other competencies and skills, including entrepreneurship skills, so that when these students complete these occupational qualifications, beyond the technical skills that they have obtained, they can also start their own businesses. We have various partnerships with Alan and Jill Gray, with valued citizens initiatives. We have with Sasol Foundation. We've got a lot of partnerships that work in the space of developing competencies for entrepreneurship. There is entrepreneurship for artisans, focusing on women students who are completing artisan trades in TVET College. So there are all those opportunities in the entrepreneurship space, and the occupational qualifications provide that space because of their flexibility.
Thank you for offering us that insight this afternoon, Flekas. We truly appreciate it. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
All righty then. That was Mr. Vere from the Department of Higher Education
The passion,
and
my
Training. I am now sitting with Mr. Sonti, who is the Assistant Director of Student Leadership and Governance in the Department of Higher Education and Training. Ultimately, I think that today happened. Good evening, Mhlekazi.
Good evening, ma'am, and how are you?
I'm doing all right, thank you. How are you today?
I'm tired.
Yeah, I can imagine. You had the responsibility of carrying the program today.
Yes.
Kudos to you, might I add. As you know, the person who was leading, the program today on such an important conference that we started here in Johannesburg, day one only. But maybe you can give us, as we wrap up the day, some key takeaways from today.
So for me, firstly, it's the first of its kind.
Sure.
So for a very long time in the sector, curriculum conversation or curriculum debates have been an issue of the professional staff, so the experts, the department, the lecturers.
Sure.
But for the first time, we have a student voice in what they want to see happen. So for me, that was a milestone on its own. The second part, and I was very impressed by the level of understanding from our students, of our leaders in terms of the curriculum itself. At some point, I even said they know it more than I do, and I work for the department. So
That's a good thing.
For me, that was very impressive.
Yeah.
And well, of course, the maturity in how they applied themselves as well.
Sure.
So they made it easy for me.
Well, that's good.
They made it easy.
So were you saying that we are then heading in the right direction of ultimately, achieving the goal of transformation within the TVET sector?
I think so. Remember, in each and everything that we do as a department, we want to make these people happy. Now that they are starting to add their voice, they're starting to say, you've been talking about us, but you've not been talking to us.
Sure.
You've been saying this is what you want to see us achieve, but you've never asked us if the direction you guys want as a department is the correct direction. But for me, I think now that they're starting to raise their voices, it's a good direction that we're heading into.
Sure thing. So we've tackled the topics for day one. Maybe just walk me through on what day 2 and 3 then will ultimately look like.
Okay. So day 2, because of time today, we still have one panel discussion.
Sure.
So that panel discussion is more or less about former leaders of the structure. They will then say, remember, before there was this leadership, there were 4 bearers of that.
Sure.
So they will then say how you guys have moved from our original slogan of TVET rising to TVET transforming into both a responsive curriculum and so forth. So how you have moved from that to where we are now, they will give those historical lessons. But the second part is more content-based in terms of tomorrow. You will then have commissions. Commissions will start discussing a lot of topics, the employability of students, the entrepreneurship element of the curriculum, and how do we tie that with partnerships within the sector, the articulation from a TVET college to a university, and how do you make that process seamlessly. So tomorrow will be more of the more content driven, less debates, more content, more content.
Sure, which is what we need.
Sunday is a good day in a sense. So Sunday you'll have the first part of the day with higher health. Higher health has been supporting SATVETSA for a very long time, so we've dedicated almost a half a day for them to come and engage students. At times we take it for granted that these young leaders, especially most of them, are now at their end of their SRC terms.
Got you.
So you have a situation where they are now used to hotel life. They are now used to these airplanes and so forth and flying all over the country. Now, when the reality hits that the term has come to an end, they must go back to their shacks and so forth. Psychologically, they are affected. So we're calling Higher Health tomorrow to come and have a session with them. And we'll then close off the day with the topic that they love the most, which is NSFAS. So with NSFAS, we are looking at the closeout process for 2024. Where is NSFAS now? All the topical issues for 2024. We then also look at the preparations for 2025.
Sure.
Because towards the beginning of the year, January is an opportunistic month. So you'll have protests and so forth, but we want to engage students now so that we know what to expect in 2025. And they know what to expect from us as well in 2025.
Yeah.
And that will be the end of Sunday.
I think as the first of its kind, you have definitely taken a holistic approach to everything and considered every factor.
Yeah.
So
we've dedicated 2 days to curriculum,
Yeah.
content on curriculum.
Sure.
Then the last day, we then getting off curriculum a bit. So the hardcore business is done. We then
Sure.
deal with the soft things, your NSFAS, your higher health and so forth.
Got you. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and thank you for all the work that you've done. I'm sure that the students will agree when they say it does not go unnoticed, and all the best for the rest of the conference.
Thank you so much for having us, and see you tomorrow on it here. Enjoy the rest of your evening as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's it from my side.